Hey, Pastor Josh here. We are looking at and reading Jeremiah chapter 7, verses 1 through 15. And this is Jeremiah's famous or infamous temple sermon. This sermon, we know exactly where he was preaching it, and it was in the temple, in preaching even against what the people are thinking about regarding the temple. Giving you a little context where we're at in the book, we have kind of shifted gears here as we have went into chapter 7. Chapters 2 through 6 are basically various collections of sermons, more than likely preached during Josiah's reign. So more than likely that collection of sermons are from King Josiah's time. Scholars obviously debate this and discuss and look at different clues, but I'm pretty well convinced it's probably under the reign of Josiah. So that's 2 through 6. And then chapter 1 is the call of Jeremiah and his call to ministry. Chapter 7 is this sermon that really gets him in some trouble in what he is saying. He is, saying what they're doing is wrong, which is going to get him in trouble anyway, right? But then he's also putting himself against some of these other false prophets that are saying everything's okay. You've got the temple of the Lord. You don't need to worry. The temple's fine, and you're doing the sacrifices, so you can keep going. And Jeremiah's saying, no, that's not really the case, because God doesn't just care about the place that you worship or even how you worship. God cares about how you live, and you need to be living in accordance to his rules and his principles. So let's jump into our reading, chapter 7, verses 1 through 15. Remember, this is the sermon, the sermon that Jeremiah would have preached in the temple. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, this is from Yahweh, stand in the gate of the Lord's house and proclaim there this word and say. So you see, Jeremiah is actually standing in a gate to the Lord's house. He's standing right at the door and proclaiming this word. And I wonder, do you think he was on repeat? Like he just kept saying the same things over and over again? Or do you think it was a one-time deal? You just go up there, say it once, and leave. I think there's probably clues with the way that ancient folks would have distributed information, that this was probably kind of on repeat, that Jeremiah was saying the same thing over and over again until he amassed a crowd, or different people came and passed by and said, oh, he's silly, what's he talking about, or whatnot. You can kind of think of it as radio talk show hosts, or even our 24/7 news cycle. They're saying the same thing in different ways. They're saying it over and over again. Except this case, Jeremiah is speaking the words of the Lord over and over again so that everybody that's walking into the temple hears this sermon. So proclaim there this word and say, hear the word of the Lord. You can't respond to the Lord and obey the word unless you first hear the word of the Lord. All you men of Judah who enter these gates to worship the Lord. You're coming into the temple to worship the Lord. You need to listen. I've got a word for you. Thus says the Lord of hosts. That would be another word for armies. Whenever you see the Lord of hosts, he's the Lord of armies. He's the Lord of all these battalions in heavenly battalions. This heavenly host is a spiritual battle force, if you will. The God of Israel, amend your ways. So here's if we boiled it down to one statement, this is what God is saying to the people of Judah. You've got to change your ways. You've got to amend them. You've got to fix them. Amend your ways and your deeds, and I will let you dwell in this place. If you fix what you're doing, then this temple is going to be here, and this city is going to stay here. If you change, do not trust in these deceptive words. So there are some guys that are saying some things that are wrong. These are their deceptive words. They're saying this is the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. What they're saying is that this is the temple of the Lord. Nothing can happen to the temple. As long as this is intact, we're basically free from anybody attacking us or coming in and bothering us. We have the temple of the Lord here. Everything's great. But Jeremiah is saying, no, that's not the case. And God is saying this through Jeremiah. And here's some conditional statements. God says, for if you truly amend your ways, if you truly change your ways and your deeds, if you truly execute justice one with another, if you do not oppress the sojourner, the fatherless, or the widow, or shed innocent blood in this place, and if you do not go after other gods to your own harm, then I will let you dwell in this place. So he's saying you've got to do what's right. You can't, and then he's getting even specific. Don't oppress the people that are that are sojourning, that are living here, that are immigrants, that are coming through, or maybe just passing through, staying here and going on. The ones that don't have a father, or those that have lost their spouses. Don't be shedding innocent blood, killing people for no reason and the wrong reasons. Don't go after other gods. If you do these things, then you can dwell in this place. The temple of the Lord will be fine, as long as you're doing what is right in the land that I gave of old to your fathers forever. Verse 8 then says, behold, you trust in deceptive words to no avail. You're trusting these false prophets. Will you steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, make offerings to Baal, and go after other gods that you have not known? Just like there's a litany of here's specific things that you're doing wrong. And I've actually put here the commandment that they're breaking here. And you can see there's a litany of the 10 commandments that they are breaking. Commandment 8, they're breaking the 6th commandment by murdering. They're breaking the 7th with adultery. They're lying when they swear falsely. They're making offerings to Baal. They're making offerings to an idol, which it's not really to their credit, but they really did believe that there was a connection between Baal and Yahweh. So when they worshiped Baal, it wasn't necessarily in their mind that they thought that they were totally leaving the Lord, but that they were somehow partnering Yahweh up with some other gods. But still, they were breaking that 2nd commandment, making idols and offerings to idols, and going after other gods that you have not known. So there's the 1st commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 commandments real quick of the 10 commandments that you have broken. It says you're breaking these things, and then come and stand before me in this house, which is called by my name, and say, we are delivered, only to go on doing all these abominations. It's as if our parents or your parents would have told you, not in my house. You can do that wherever you want, but you can't do it in my house. And God's saying you're going out and doing these things, and you come in my house and say, hey, we're fine. We're delivered. We have the temple of the Lord. No. If you're following after the Lord, it changes your heart. God changes your heart. He causes you to love the things that he loves and hates the things that he hates. And when we do that, it brings life to ourselves and brings life to the people that are around us. Has this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes? Have you heard that phrase before? Den of robbers. Actually, even calling the temple a den of robbers. If you remember, Jesus called it that when he cleared out the temple. If you remember, they were selling things in the temple and making extreme profits on it, and making the temple a place of a marketplace. And Jesus says, you have made my house should be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves, a den of robbers. So Jesus is obviously quoting and thinking about Jeremiah as he cleanses the temple in the Gospels. Behold, I myself have seen it, declares the Lord. Go now to my place that was in Shiloh. Now, a lot of times we forget this, and you may not have even know it. But God's temple, his tent at the very beginning, wasn't even a permanent building. It was Solomon that made it a permanent building. But his temple, the tabernacle, the tent, first was put in a city called Shiloh. And this is where, if you remember the call of Samuel when he was a small boy and he became a prophet, in Eli, the priest during that time, and in Hannah, Samuel's mama dedicated Samuel to the Lord and had him stay with Eli. Samuel grew up. All of that happened in Shiloh. And then what happened from there is, let me read and then I'll tell you. So he said, go to my place that was in Shiloh, where I made my name dwell at first, where the temple was, and see what I did to it because of the evil of my people Israel. If you remember, Eli the priest kind of adopted Samuel. Samuel served and grew up and became a man under Eli. And Eli's boys, though, they were priests, but they were bad priests, and they weren't doing things that they should be doing. And God revealed to Samuel that these boys would be killed, essentially, and because of what they were doing. And Samuel told Eli, and it all came true. What happened is the Philistines attacked. They took the Ark of the Covenant out of the temple at Shiloh. The army of Israel lost in this battle against the Philistines, and then the temple, or the Ark of the Covenant, was then taken off. And whenever David then recovered the Ark of the Covenant, he didn't bring it back to Shiloh. He brought it back to Jerusalem. It didn't stay in the Philistines for long. The Philistines, when they took the Ark of the Covenant, all kinds of bad things happened to them, and the Philistines ended up putting the Ark of the Covenant on with oxen and a wagon. Put the Ark of the Covenant in the wagon, and then the oxen just randomly through the Lord's direction brought it back home. A lot of extra stuff there, I know, but the temple of the Lord used to be in a place called Shiloh, and the Lord abandoned Shiloh. And he's saying, go back to Shiloh. There's nothing there anymore. And my temple is not there. And what has happened to Shiloh is going to happen to Jerusalem. Verse 13, and now because you have done all these things, declares the Lord, and when I spoke to you persistently, you did not answer. And when I called you, you did not answer. Jesus says that his sheep hear his voice. So those of us that are born of God, you that are born of God, you are a Christian. When God speaks, you hear. When God speaks, you answer. Now, we know we backslide, we go backwards, but oftentimes we feel bad about it, and we get pulled back eventually. And so if anybody's in a spot where they hear the word of the Lord and they keep rejecting it, that means they're not of the Lord. Our prayer, though, is that our close loved ones that seem to be in a spot where they have rejected the Lord, our prayer is that the word of the Lord will get through their ears and get to their hearts, and they'll turn back to God and show that they were truly of God in the first place. But God is saying, hey, I've called to you and you did not answer. Therefore I will do to the house that is called by my name and in which you trust, and to the place that I gave to you and to your fathers as I did to Shiloh. And you can see, if you look at the end of Jeremiah, I don't know where my mouse is, if you look at the end of Jeremiah, you see God burning the city and burning the temple. And I will cast you out of my sight as I cast all of your kinsmen, all of the offspring of Ephraim. Ephraim was the name of one of the tribes of Israel, is one of the larger tribes of the north. And so Ephraim is another name for that northern kingdom. So I've told you in the past, Judah is the southern kingdom, Israel is the northern kingdom. It also was sometimes called Ephraim because it was one of the larger tribes in the north. So when you're reading your Bible and you see the word Ephraim, it very well could be talking about the northern kingdom if we're after the divided kingdom. It's also sometimes called Samaria because that was the capital city of the northern nation of Israel after the divided kingdom. I pray that you got something out of this, and I'll see you in the next video.